More Ukrainians arriving at the border crossing with Poland, and now a tentative agreement about humanitarian corridors could see an even bigger surge in those numbers. Let's take you to editor-in-chief of Celebro Media, who lived and worked in the former Soviet Union for 5 years, Wesley Dodd. Wesley, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, and those humanitarian corridors are going to be very, very important. Don't forget, we're now on day 9 of this war. There's a lot of people been stuck in basements and shelters in some of the areas that have seen the heaviest fighting for a long time, and they just haven't been able to leave. So those humanitarian corridors are a possibility of allowing aid agencies such as the Red Cross to go in without any risk of being bombed or under any fighting, and get those people out, get those refugees out to safety somewhere like here in Poland, where already 500,000 people have arrived. Over 1 million refugees total have left Ukraine, and it's worth mentioning 500,000 of those are children. Can you imagine that?
No, that's incredible, Wesley. You know, and your reporting has been fantastic on this. I think while you were talking, I heard laughter, and I know that it's a very obviously serious and sad scene there. But I know that as these Ukrainians have been arriving at these Polish border crossings, many on foot, some have been taking trains, but the response has just been beautiful. People waiting there with food, and like you mentioned, all those children, they've been waiting even with toys for the kids.
It's very, very heartwarming. And, you know, for all the moments of sadness, there are moments of joy here. Just on one of these tents here on my right, it's the children's tent. And there's a couple of nuns from one of the local churches looking after the kids here. And, you know, some of those kids might spend the whole day in here while they're waiting for transport. And to see the love and the care and the big bear hugs that they get given as they're sent on the way, and the joy on their faces to know that they've done their bit and those kids are now safe. It really is very heartwarming.
Yeah, I wonder how much the children are able to really, truly understand what's going on. And I'm sure they get it, but how frightening that must be. But even a bear, just something that they can hug and love, and a glimmer of hope, right? Well, Wesley, thank you. Wesley Dodd live for us. We're going to talk to you again.
Meantime, stateside, the Department of Homeland Security has given temporary protected status to Ukrainians in the U.S. for the next 18 months. That impacts tens of thousands of people right now who will not have to fear being deported during this crisis. Joining us now with reaction is Republican Congresswoman from New York, Claudia Tenney. Congresswoman, as we've been following, this is a greater humanitarian crisis playing out worldwide. Could this have been prevented?
Well, obviously, we could have done more to prevent Putin from moving into Ukraine. We could have been more deterrent. We could have been energy independent, as many of your guests have alluded to. We also could have and still have the option on the table to impose sanctions on Putin by not buying Russian oil, something that incredibly Nancy Pelosi agreed to yesterday. But the problem is, if we're going to cut off Russian oil to the United States, we have to produce our own, and we have to bring back the Keystone Pipeline, which Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg said is off the table, but he's willing to negotiate and get oil from Iran, who, by the way, one of the negotiators, the key negotiators in the new Iran nuclear deal that the Democrats are trying to resurrect, is Russia. It's incredible how naive and just plain how absurd this administration is. And it was greatly pointed out by your prior guest, Ambassador Pete Hoekstra. This is insane that this administration is not looking at this clear-eyed and with common sense.
Right. Let me explain for our viewers what we're looking at right now. Again, those were live images of the Ukraine-Poland border, where you see what appear to be families or members of families arriving, fleeing Ukraine. You see children, suitcases as well, desperate to get out of the war-torn country and seeking safety at this point. You talk about what America can do, how the U.S. can respond when it comes to banning the import of Russian oil. Are you seeing bipartisan support for that effort?
Unfortunately, as I said, Nancy Pelosi said she's interested in not importing Russian oil, but she's not willing to unleash the abundant supplies that we have, even in my district in New York State, where some of the best shale reserves are, right in the southern tier of New York. And we are the only state in the nation that's not allowed to do safe, responsible regulated gas drilling to tap into those resources for prosperity and also to make us energy secure. And as you're showing these pictures of Poland, I will say there has been a bit of an agreement that was, the only positive thing coming out of the talks with Ukraine and Putin so far that I know of, where there are going to be some channels to allow women, children, and vulnerable people to have channels to get out of the country and go into Poland. And it's heartwarming to see what a great ally Poland is. People are in stadiums donating blood to help refugees and people that have been wounded in this absolutely murderous invasion of Ukraine. So it's very frustrating to watch this. And by the way, the Russian people are receiving just incredible propaganda from Putin describing the Ukrainians as the Nazi occupiers. And a lot of that misinformation is coming through our channels, too, in the United States.
Sure.
And so I think people should be wary of all the information they're seeing out there and make sure that they're finding their sources and making sure it's true.
Yeah, always important to look out for misinformation during wartime, of course.